Hello. Just a few weeks ago, there was a mass shooting in Idaho, and a fellow YouTuber by the name of Jordan Salinas, his YouTube handle is Poverty Operator. He was in the vicinity of that shooting and responded to the shots, and it's evident from his channel that he had been preparing for that kind of a shooting. He just recently released a video commenting on his a detailed explanation of what he went through. And Jordan, just really appreciate your honesty and your sensitivity and your preparation. You are a hero, and just want to thank you. Thank you for your example. I want to just share some thoughts, some reflections on that, because like Jordan, many of you who watch my channel know that I've been preparing for a similar kind of event. And this is a little different than just preparing day to day for what we call concealed carry, responding to a threat to yourself. I'll go ahead and acknowledge, I've had the training as far as the concealed carry classes. I'm licensed and permitted in my state to carry concealed. But I've also felt the need to go above and beyond and receive some training and to think more in the lines of responding to a mass shooting event. And some of that has to do with where I work. I'm not going to get very specific on that, but the environment where I'm at, I'll just be honest. While the law enforcement officers, I think, are well trained and definitely ready to jump in and serve, where I'm at, have a lot of respect for them, know a lot of them personally. If I were to call 911 right now, the closest officer is probably 15 minutes away. And that is not going to stop an active shooter if there was that kind of environment. You might not be able to hear the cars on the highway close by. I am within a half mile of the biggest grocery store in the area, within a couple hundred yards, about 200 yards of a fast food restaurant. Right now, a couple hundred yards from a coffee shop. As I'm sitting here filming this, I could hear gunshots. Now, you say, well, that's not likely. No, not likely, but it is possible. It is very possible that if there were an attack in my area, it would be concentrated within the half mile of where I am literally kneeling right now to film this video, among other things. So as I share this, I'm kneeling in gravel, so I'm gonna shift my weight here. When I go into the office, I'm always carrying something. Right now I've been carrying this subcompact Taurus 40 Smith & Wesson. This is probably very similar to many of the concealed carry guns that many of you have trained with and are carrying. And in environments where someone trying to mug you or carjack you or breaking into an office building space, and all of those scenarios, which are the more likely scenarios, involve shots between 5 and 15 yards. And this gun and others like it are more than capable of, as a gun itself, the mechanical and the accuracy potential of the round, the stopping power of the round, are more than capable of dealing with those kinds of environments and stopping the threat. Now, if you've watched any of the events that transpired there in Idaho, Jordan ended up using a full-size firearm with a longer barrel, as well as a suppressor attached to the end of his barrel, and which he was fully legally able to have. But it was a 5.7 FN 5.7. That is a round that was developed for military use, has seen a lot of use in especially foreign law enforcement, has been used by the Secret Service here in America. I don't know of any other law enforcement branches that actively issue that or use that. It's more of a boutique round. It's very precise. Basically, it is a 5.56 round shrunk down to to fit into a pistol. And his pistol, I think the average magazine capacity is, I believe, 20. So definitely has more rounds on tap than even your conventional full-size 9mm. So that, I think, is very important, because if you listen to his story, you know, he engaged multiple times with the shooter. He even had a malfunction where he had to do the tap and rack and clear the jam. How ironic, you know, that it happened right in the middle of that scenario. Wow. And that's why it's important to practice the tap, rack, bang, you know, and practice mag changes, have a backup magazine, you know, think through those things and practice through those things. You know, but also with that 5.7 round, and I have shot a 5.7 round before. I currently don't own any, but I am thinking about it even now after hearing Jordan's testimony. But that 5.7 round, very flat shooting round, very precise, very high accuracy potential for it. And with that suppressor, you know, he was saying that his first couple rounds possibly impacted the shooter, but the shooter had no idea where he was. Well, that's a great tactical advantage for that kind of scenario. So definitely something to consider. But he is, of course, able to make longer shots out past that 15-yard window. He's able to make connections, you know, well out to 50 yards easily. Now, can this gun shoot 50 yards? Absolutely. You know, but can you accurately shoot? You know, he also shares about making sure that he picked shots that if he missed his target, that it wasn't going to impact a group of people or a group of cars. He waited until the shooter was in front of a brick building. He waited until the shooter was in front of a dumpster. You know, and I applaud him for not only having the foresight to, you know, see the target, assess the threat, but then also to think about the innocent bystanders that could be beyond his target and make sure he chose his shots carefully. All of that took very careful planning. So I just want to challenge a lot of my viewers to join me in following that example, thinking through those scenarios. You know, a lot of the anti-gun activists are saying, well, we don't want you know, the Wild West out there. Well, the Wild West is there. There are people actively using firearms to hurt and kill our fellow American citizens, and it's time for us as American citizens to stand up and stop the threats regardless of where they're at. And that takes intentional planning and practice to be able to do that, and Jordan demonstrated that. I also want to share with you, you know, it's important to have other equipment. In some of my other videos, I talk about this, making sure that you have a medical kit. This one is produced by the USCCA, the United States Concealed Carry Association, and this is a great kit with a little tourniquet, different gauze and chest seal. So this is specifically for those traumatic injuries specifically caused by gunshot wounds. These are life-saving tools when the ambulance is 10, 15, 20, 40 minutes away. Just recently I had to make a 911 call here for a medical situation, and it took 30 minutes for an ambulance to show up. And took another 30 minutes beyond that for a state trooper to show up to the scene. You know, and that's a sobering reality that we're in. But not only having medical equipment, but then also having something to potentially engage someone that is using a rifle. So I personally do not want to go up against somebody wielding a rifle using a subcompact handgun. I would want to be able to get something like this, and notice how slow this setup currently is. So it took me about 10 seconds, give or take. In some scenarios that might be more than adequate, but you know, this is a 7.5 inch barreled 7.62 by 39, so this is the round the AK-47 is chambered in. Have it on this AR-15 pistol platform, set up with a LPVO, low power variable optic, with a light, and it's ready to rock and roll. You know, with this setup, I can engage targets, you know, effectively out to 150 yards, maybe a little beyond, depending on the situation. Now, out past 50 yards, you know, you're being able to justify a self-defense or a defensive shot. You better be definitely sure that legally you can take that shot. But still, even at closer quarters, I want this kind of power at hand to be able to deal with a threat that is using the same kind of power against me. So just want to challenge those of you who, you know, are burdened by the reality of the world we're living in right now and want to do something. Well, take some steps to increase your abilities and your firepower to be able to step in and engage a threat. There's multiple ways to address this. This is just one. This kind of setup can become very expensive. It can also be done in a budget way. This is more of a budget-minded setup. But I do feel fairly confident with this that if the need arose even right this very moment, that I could use this to not only defend my life, but to defend others, to engage a threat and stop a threat. There are also other ways to make this kind of setup more efficient, more accurate, also faster to get out and employ in future videos. I'll share more of that. But just want to leave that challenge with you, and again also say just a special thank you and proud of you to Jordan. Thank you for standing in the gap and standing up to evil and stopping the threat. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Take care.